Round up a big topic from the week. The Texas Supreme Court has agreed to hear a Houston case challenging the legalization of gay marriage. A lawsuit is seeking to halt same-sex spousal benefits offered to Houston's municipal employees. The court originally refused to hear the case, but state Republican leaders pushed back, saying it could serve as a platform to help lead the way toward overturning the Supreme Court's legalization of gay marriage. That's our topic this half hour. As always, we like to hear from you on our Fox 26 Facebook page. You can also weigh in on Twitter. Just send me a tweet at Sally Mack, Fox 26. Joining us live in the studio, our Fox 26 senior legal analyst, Chris Tritico. We have Democratic media consultant Mustafa Tamiz and Republican strategist and public policy analyst Jackie Bally. Good morning again.
Good morning.
So how significant is this decision to rehear?
So the Texas Supreme Court and most appellate courts across the nation very, very rarely give a rehearing once they have issued a decision, especially in a case like this where the original decision was 8-1 not to hear it in the first place. So this is a significant ruling in favor of Governor Abbott and the other people who filed briefs requesting this rehearing, Jackie Bally. And what they're suggesting is that the Supreme Court should weigh in and allow this to go back to the U.S. Supreme Court on a case from Texas suggesting that the U.S. Supreme Court was wrong in the first place. This is a long shot from Texas to go back to the U.S. Supreme Court to assault and attack their ruling on gay marriage.
I've always thought that this is a states' right issue, that there's no secret there. We are much more conservative in Texas than you have in California and other states. However, when the U.S. Supreme Court decided to make this decision, they really didn't care what we thought. We had it in our Constitution that our definition of a marriage is between a man and a woman. 70% of our voters, Democrats and Republicans in Texas, agree with that definition. Again, the United States Supreme Court does not really care what we think. It is a states' right issue, but at this moment, they're not letting us make that decision.
The ruling to rehear this is probably a bad sign for the city of Houston's policy on this decision. Quite frankly, that they don't rehear things to say we were right the first time, and so it's probably going to get overturned. But I doubt very seriously that's going to have much impact on the U.S. Supreme Court.
No, we don't know. I mean, we're going to have a new Supreme Court justice that's going to be appointed. We don't know who that is going to be. Again, we seem to be really getting the same things over and over again. It just seems like a bad movie that's a rerun. On the one hand, as Jackie says, it's a straight right case. On the other hand, we seem to want to take it back to the Supreme Court. So when we don't get what we want at a state level, we take it to the Supreme Court. When we don't get things at the Supreme Court, we take it to the state court. So you know, there's a challenge that we face, that we no longer accept government unless it gives us exactly what we want. And we've got to get beyond this. You know, there are things that the American public has come to a certain point in public opinion, which is that a marriage is a marriage between a man and a woman, or a man and a man and a woman and a woman, and we just got to get over it.
Go ahead, real quick.
Well, I mean, we defined in our Constitution what Texans believe a marriage is. Again, it didn't even barely pass. It passed overwhelmingly. Our amendment to our Constitution says that a definition of a marriage is between a man and a woman. That is how a majority of Texans, regardless of a D or an R by your name, feel. So we have defined what Texans believe the definition of a marriage is.
And the U.S. Supreme Court, who has the final decision in the United States, disagreed. Let me go to Sally. She's monitoring our social media.
All right, let's check in on Facebook. First, we're going to go to the page of the Texas Values Group. They were celebrating this victory. If you can see it there in the middle of the screen there, they say Texas deserves to have the rule of law upheld. Today's decision is an important step in defending our state's marriage laws and protecting taxpayers' rights to not be forced by government to fund illegal same-sex benefits. And then we'll hear some comments here from Jen. She says, I support Republicans on lots of issues, but not on this. You can't force your personal religious beliefs on others. And Scott says it's a waste of time and tax dollars. Any union should be allowed to have the same benefits. And that's really what this case is talking about, are these same-sex benefits.
Well, and it keeps coming back, as Mustafa said, it keeps coming back to relitigating the same issue over and over again. But that's really part of what the U.S. Supreme Court sets these issues up this way, because the Supreme Court, from its inception, rarely settles every issue from the beginning. It settles single issues at a time and doesn't settle the entire issue.
Well, look, I mean, they're selling what's in front of them, right? And so even on this case, on the one hand, people will say local control. So this is a local issue. This was decided by the Houston City Council, but the state comes out and says, no, we want to handle it ourselves. But then we go to the federal government and say, no, it's a state issue. So do you want local control, or do you, or on the other hand, you argue that the federal government's stepping into it? So have it what you want. But at the end of the day, they want it their way, and they'll use any principle to argue that, even erroneously.
What about
and our governor and our lieutenant governor are fighting for a majority of their voters. A majority of their voters feel this is an important issue, and a majority of their voters disagree with the U.S. Supreme Court's ruling. I will say this: we are going to have Donald Trump nominate and appoint with the Senate a new Supreme Court justice. A lot of people are thinking that person will be conservative. I hope, but we need to remember that Donald Trump himself is very much pro-homosexual and pro-transgender. So the fact that we have a pro-transgender Republican president, probably for the first time, the fact that it's going to be very different.
Well, this one nomination is not going to change the balance of the Supreme Court, because you're replacing, even if it's a conservative, replacing a conservative with a conservative, so it's not going to change the balance of the court.
Yeah,
he's got to have two.
Yeah, this won't. But look, at the end of the day, this is wasting more taxpayer dollars in more litigation. So again, on the one hand, they argue again on frivolous lawsuits.
But we're out of time. But this is the same thing as abortion that we've been talking about my entire lifetime. And these things don't go away, because it involves religion and morality and things that never go away. We got to stop right there. We'll be back in the next hour wrapping up 2 really good stories.
Okay, we'll see you all then. Thanks so much.